Somebody respond, please.
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, good. Okay, recording's on. Okay, hope you guys have had a good midterm exams and everything's over and done with. This course does not have final exams, so pretty much the rest of this course is going to be more practical and more kind of business related or even workshop if possible, if we going to have pretty much offline classes once more. If not, we can always do it online version of it. And you'll see, so we'll do more about like Android apps and iOS apps designs, as well as websites and other things, including the clean tech assignment, which is business simulations and so on. So maybe I do a playthrough of clean tech assignments on one of the course and go through in terms of the various different strategies that you can optimize when playing clean tech assignments and so on. So we'll do that. I mean, that's pretty much, if anything, the remainder of this particular course should be a lot more fun, if anything. So there's going to be a mixture of all sorts of different things, which is more practical for you guys. Rather than learning from books and theories and so on and doing exams and so on. The second part of this course is focused more on practicality and basically just having fun. And don't forget, there's also the presentation as well, which will happen next week, okay? You guys have chosen which topics going to be presented to you. And not only that, I take next week. It's going to be less of a job for me because you guys are going to be teaching the rest of the class rather than me teaching the class. So I will help out in terms of introducing the various different presenters and so on, and maybe some comments and some questions and so on to the speakers and so on. But next week is going to be more relaxing for me because you guys are going to be doing the teaching rather than me doing the teaching. Okay, before we start, we'll start on something which is practical as well, which you'll see later on. It's going to be modern business model, the so-called Fantastic Five, which we'll go through in a moment. But before we go into it, let's just summarize or even talk to you guys about the midterm exams. Yeah, I mean, the results from the midterm exams, I have not sent it out. I will not send out the final score yet, but as long, I will try to update it or upload it to EDOsoft as quickly as possible. But this is the results from 64 students who sat the exams. So don't forget, not only the Wednesday class, but also the Tuesday class as well. So please take this results with a pinch of salt. Most of you managed to get around sort of like the early 80s, around 80% or so. Up to a few of you managed to get around sort of like 90% as well. So the highest score is 41 out of 45. So it's approaching 90. The average in terms of the midterm exams is around 70% or so. So around, so like these kind of, well, here the average, 31 question out, or 31 out of 45 is the average. But surprisingly, kind of weird, that some of you, there's a bunch happen around so like the 50% area. Yeah, so the pass fail kind of 50% area is the 21, 22. But you can see there's a bunch of people managed to only get around to like 49% or 47% or so. It's kind of weird that there is some kind of war happening at around so like the 50% mark for some reason. There shouldn't be, but surprisingly there is. Somehow, some of you find it hard to jump past that 50% for some reason. I don't know why. Weird. In terms of difficulties, most of you managed to answer most of the question, but there's a few questions most of you seem to have wrong. So the worst question where you guys managed, most of you guys managed to get wrong is this one here. Only 12 people managed to answer correctly. The question, this particular question is according to World Economic Forum, which of the following is not key for efficiency-driven economy? So you remember from the World Economic Forum, there are three three factors. Yeah, the factor-driven, the efficiency-driven, and the innovation-driven. Most of you answered unskilled labor, which is factor-driven. Don't forget, anything within the efficiency-driven also include the factor-driven. And anything in the innovation-driven include efficiency and also include factor-driven. Yeah, efficiency is before innovation-driven. Yeah, so the right answer should be innovation, because efficiency does not include the innovation parts of the economy, whereas unskilled labor is within the factor-driven. So things like natural resources and unskilled labor is in the factor-driven. Anything in the factor-driven is also included in the efficiency-driven. But anything to do with innovation is in the innovation-driven economy, not efficiency-driven economy. So most of you managed to get it wrong. 37 students managed to get it wrong. The right answer is innovation-driven. And 12 of you managed to get it right. So it's around 20% of you managed to get it right. In terms of difficulty, the next question, which most of you managed to get wrong, is this one here. Of the 8 themes of desirable behavior, which are most important? Which are most important? So here, of the 8 themes of desirable behavior, we have commitments, perseverance, motivation, commitments, perseverance, determination, perseverance, tolerance to risk. Most of you managed to answer, around 40% of you answered determination, perseverance, and tolerance to risk. If you look back to the lecture notes, you see that the commitment, perseverance, and determination are the highest compared to the others. So of that, 22% managed to get it right. 14 people answered correctly. 25 students managed to answer incorrectly. That's around like 40%. So other question where you have problems with, let me just have a look. What other questions are there? Oops. So the worst question was this one, 12, 14. The next one is 22. Only 22 managed to get this particular question correctly. So because Vietnam is a highly collective culture, you can deduce from Hofstede research that Vietnam is also is going to be power distance culture. So 22 of you managed to get it correctly. But most of you seem to get it incorrectly for some reason. I'm unsure what it is. Most of you managed to answer both individualism culture and high context communication culture. The high context communication culture is not part of Hofstede. So this is meant to be a red herring. The right answer is high power distance culture, which is Vietnam. In terms of other difficulties, let me have a look. What's the next difficult question? Most of you managed to get it incorrectly. So after 22% is the 26 of you managed to get this one correctly, but most of you managed to get it incorrectly. Which one was this? R&D is more beneficial to all companies. All companies require R&D, whether you trading companies, sales or marketing or whatever. In general, R&D is needed by everyone, by every company. So 26 of you, that's almost 40%, actually above 40%, managed to get it correct. Some of you managed to get it incorrectly, such as technology firms and so on. Small firms, big firms, any kind of firms, all needs R&D, not only technology or technological firms. So there's a misunderstanding there as well. Okay, what else did you manage to get incorrect as well? Let's see. So 26, 29 is the next one, I think. So this particular question, 29 of you managed to get it correctly. So most of you, so almost 50% managed to get it correctly. Do entrepreneurial firms add employment growth to the economy? The right answer is significantly. Yeah? In general, small, medium-sized enterprise tends to be the biggest employer in Vietnam and in most other economy as well. Not only big companies, if anything, small, medium-sized enterprises or entrepreneurial firms produce the majority of employment. Some of you managed to get it wrong. 17 people answered some, but not a lot. In general, that is incorrect. It is the biggest employer in most economies, which also include Vietnam as well. Okay, what else? What other mistake you guys managed to make? So 29, what's the next one? 30. Which is not a type of corporate venturing? So if you remember from your lecture notes, there should be a table which lists the various different corporate venturing, include ecosystem venturing, innovation venturing, harvest venturing, and private equity venturing. And so the one which is not in that table was social venturing. So most of you managed to get it right. 30 people answered correctly. Some of you managed to get it wrong. Things like harvest venturing, 12 of you answered that for some reason. I don't know why. And some of you, 10 of you managed to answer ecosystem venturing, and 11 of you answered private equity venturing. Yeah, so that's incorrect. Yeah. So if you look back at your lecture notes, in the table in terms of entrepreneurships, it lists 4 different kind of venturing, which is this 4 here. Social venturing was not even mentioned anywhere. Okay, what else you managed to get incorrect? So 30 and 31. So these two, same amount of people got mistakes. 31 people managed to get it correct. Let's have a look. Which trait is not associated with the left hemisphere? So the correct answer is recording your hunches, feelings, and intuitions and so on, which is more right brain, yeah, whereas all the others choices tends to be left brain. Majority of you managed to get this incorrect. 16 of you chose detailed fantasizing and visualizing things and situations into the future. That's more of a left brain kind of trait. You know. Hunches and so on, and feelings and so on are more right brain. So the right answer is this particular. And 31% of you, 31 student, which almost 50% of you managed to get it correctly. What was the other one which 31 people managed to get right? Let's see. What's wrong with my mouse today? So weird. Okay, so left brain was one. The other one was which researcher did not look into entrepreneurships and natural culture? That's going to be Hofstede. Yeah. Sorry, Ronstadt. Robert Ronstadt. Yeah, he has the definition for entrepreneurships, whereas all the other researchers research into culture. Yeah, Ronstadt is the one which did not research into culture. So almost 50% of you managed to get it correct. Most of you managed to get it wrong. And Lam and Patel, you check your lecture notes. They did research in culture and entrepreneurship, yeah, as well as Hofstede, as well as Morrison Davis, as well as Lumpkin and Dee. Yeah, the only person who did not do that is Robert Ronstadt, which basically come up with a definition, one of the many definitions for entrepreneurships. Okay, so in general, we see that most of you managed to achieve quite a high score. Around here is the 75% area. So most of you, quite a few of you managed to get above the 75% area. But some kind of weird sort of situation happened around sort of the 50% area for some reason, yeah, which is kind of weird. That you have some kind of invisible wall at the 50% mark. I'm not too sure whether you guys are aiming for 50% or just aiming under 50% or so, just for the fun of it or not. That's a little bit unsure there. Okay, let's get back to something a little bit more fun. Okay. Today we'll cover modern business model. These are more practical ways of starting businesses and so on. You see the pros and the cons and the advantages compared to what we kind of covered in the before the midterm exams. And if we have time today, we will also cover doing your Android apps as well. In general, a lot of people think that writing an Android app or even iOS app is difficult and so on. But you soon see it's relatively quite straightforward. Probably take us about 15-20 minutes or so to write an Android apps, a working Android apps. And we can always upload our apps to Google Play Store or Apple's App Store and so on as well. So we'll cover that if we have time. But before we jump into Android apps, we'll cover the modern business model. So hopefully you're going to find it a little bit more refreshing compared to what we kind of learned before the midterm exam. So the modern business model or strategy, sometimes I phrase it as the so-called Fantastic Five, and you probably agree with me once we go through these the 5 fantastic business model. Of the 5, the first one of the 5 is the lean startup model. Pretty much there's a book written on it. It's this particular book here is written by Eric Rye. The second of the Fantastic 5 is the Blue Ocean Strategy by Renee Moberg and Shan Kim. The third is quite an old book, is Disruptive Innovation. The fourth is Business Model Canvas by Alexander Ostenwald. And lastly, Design Thinking by Andrea Brandhus. I kind of done a Google trend map of the Fantastic 5. Yeah, so you see that the highest trending business model is design thinking, and you see, and I think most of you will agree why it's trending so much higher compared to the others. Followed by business model canvas. This is the red line here. The book Business Model Canvas. It came out recently, so it's kind of a recent book compared to the other books, and it has trended quite quickly as well. Not as good as design thinking, but it's better than the other Fantastic Five. Next in the trending list is Lean Startup. It's this blue line here, slightly below the Business Model Canvas, followed by Blue Ocean. And you see Blue Ocean, it was trending quite high in the early stages, but since more recent times, it has kind of dropped off substantially. You can see out of all the others, the Blue Ocean seems to be dropping off for some reason. And then lastly, disruptive innovation is it's a very old book. Yeah, so it's been around for quite a long time. So there is some trend, but it's been trending upward, which is quite good. Yeah, it's just slow, but pretty much sustainably slow, trending upward. So be careful that not the most trending books will be, or the most trending of the Fantastic Five, not necessarily will be the best strategy for you. Each one of you will have your own ideas of business and so on, and each business will require different business model as such. So in innovation, there are no one size fit all. They basically rather looking for the most popular or the most trending tools. That is, companies or startups like yourself should be looking for what are the right tools for you, what most relevant to you, rather than just any tools. And you will later see that different tools are good for different stages of a startup as well. So for example, Business Model Canvas, even though it's trending quite high, but in general, it's only effective for later stage startup. Once you understand what your business is going to be, Business Model Canvas become a lot more useful. Whereas if you try to figure out what idea or what kind of service or what kind of product your business is going to offer, Business Model Canvas is not going to be that useful. If anything, design thinking, maybe Lean Startup or Blue Ocean, going to be a lot more useful. We will see that later on. So it depends on what kind of business you're trying to start. Different business models are effective for different type of business. Yeah, so don't just pick what is popular, like design thinking. Pick what is most effective for you. But once you understand the pros and cons, the advantages and the disadvantages of each of these Fantastic Five, then you'll understand which one's good and which one's bad for your case. So the first of the Fantastic Five is the Lean Startup. Yeah? Lean Startup kind of borrow the idea from lean manufacturing. Yeah? Lean manufacturing, you try to minimize the amount of waste and costs and so on, and you try to produce products in such a way that it's costs the least amount of waste as possible. So in general, you try to eliminate wasteful practices and try to increase value producing practices. So the idea behind Lean Startup is that typically, and you learn this from your clean tech assignment, whatever you do, whenever you do the first attempt at anything you do, whether you start a business or start a business simulation, you're going to make mistakes. Yeah, and clean tech assignment, the business simulation assignment, the first attempt you play in the game, you're going to fail. That's natural. Everyone does that. When you're first born, when you're a baby, when you're learning how to walk, you're going to fall over a few times. But it does not mean that you stop walking. Yeah? By falling over a few times, you learn from your mistakes, you learn from your error. Same with clean tech assignment. you're going to make mistakes. You're going to go bankrupt the first few attempts. But the more you try, the more you make mistakes and so on, the more you learn from your mistakes and so on, the better you get at clean tech assignment or the business simulation. It's the same when you're as a baby, when you learn to walk as well. The more time you fall over, the more you learn, and then eventually you'll learn how to walk yourself. So lean startup try to figure out the things that typically for every startups, chance of failure are very high. So 90% of failure, 9% of businesses or startups will fail within their first year. So hence you need to figure out if the chance of failure is going to be high, yeah, then you need to put that into your business plan. Yeah? Most of you are going to make the mistake and you don't plan for failure. You might plan for business, but not necessarily you're going to plan for any failure that will happen, even though 90% of the time, most of you will fail. But failure isn't bad. Failure is a good thing. If you don't fail in clean tech assignment, you're not going to learn all the tricks and the experience you need to be able to manage an optimal business. It's the same when you're as a baby, when you learn to walk. If you don't fall, you're not going to learn how to walk properly. So failure is good, but it needs to be in your business plan. Yeah, you know you're going to fail. Chance of failure is going to be very high. Therefore, you need to plan that within your business plan somewhere. So clean tech or lean startup, try to figure out how, if you fail, what is the best strategy to fail? You want to fail as quickly as possible and as cheaply as possible. Because like clean tech assignment, you want to be able to play the game a few times, maybe 10, 20 times. The more you play at clean tech assignment, the better you get at the game. In the real world, it's the same as with startups as well. The more you get to play, the more likely you're going to improve. So if you know you're going to fail, you want to fail as cheaply and as quickly as possible. Therefore, you can afford to play the game again and again until you reach at some point that you come up with a successful product or successful service. So lean startup, know that you're going to fail, plan failure within the business plan, try to eliminate wasteful practices, and increase value producing practices, and improve on each iteration. Hence, with with lean startup, you need to produce this so-called minimum viable product. Yeah, a product which costs a minimum amount of resources. So you're saving your resources for version 2, version 3 of your product or your services. So in general, you produce this minimum viable product so you can launch it into the marketplace. Once you launch it, once you have an idea, you build your minimum viable product, you launch it into the marketplace, you measure customer feedback and data, you learn from your feedback and your experience from launching the minimum viable product onto the marketplace. You learn from your mistakes, and then you iterate into version 2. In version 2, you build a new product or a new service with the fixes which you learn from version 1. You launch it into the marketplace, you launch a minimum viable product into the marketplace, you measure, you iterate until you reach some kind of perfection. Eventually, you will reach some kind of perfection, similar to like your experience with clean tech assignment. The more you play at a game, the better you become at playing the game. So by version 10, maybe version 20 or so, your product or your service will become perfection. And in general, that's when success starts to come in. So in contrast to traditional plan, prepared launch approach, typically in most business plan and so on, lean startup tends to focus more on an iterative evolution. You plan failure of your product or your service, of version 1, version 2, and so on, into your business plan as well, of the product and the business and the marketing plan as a whole. The method seeks to eliminate waste. You want it to fail quickly, and you want to fail as cheaply as possible, and increase value, productive or producing practices during the product development phase. You're trying to minimize the amount of resources which you use, so you can iterate as many times as possible until you reach perfection. So no elaborate business plan and or no perfect product in version 1 or version 2 and so on. You iterate your way into perfection. You're aiming to optimize a minimum or minimize the amount of resources which you use by producing a minimum viable product. So you can launch into the marketplace to get feedback from the customers. By exposing early version of your product to the target users or customers, you can collect plenty of data and information, and which you can learn from and which you can adjust in your next iteration. Customer feedback are very, very important. During the product developments and so on, it's an integral part of what Lean Startup is all about. You learn from actual feedback from the real world market itself, and then you adjust your product according to the market itself as well, or according to the customers. In that way, you're going to reach perfection much, much quicker. So you can see Lean Startup is more a real world business model, in the sense that in your experience in terms of doing clean tech assignment, it's okay to fail the first few attempts. Plan it into your business plan. It's okay that your first version, second version, and so on, you're going to fail within the marketplace. That's okay. You're going to learn a lot of information, a lot of feedback from customers. Use those information to build your next version, and so on and so on. It's an iterative process. In the real world, it's not just clean tech assignment and so on. In the real world, people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and so on, for the companies which succeeded, what we don't hear about all the companies which fail during their process, or during their learning process, to achieve the Amazon or the Facebook or the Tesla. How many companies have they failed before that? And a lot of these good, especially good managers and so on, has to go through this learning experience. They're human, similar to you guys. The first few attempts, they're going to make mistakes. That's natural. But then they actually learn from their experience of failing in the first few companies and so on, or their first few products. They improve on it. It's an iterative process. And that's what Lean Startup is all about. It's a real world kind of way of doing things. So that's the first of the Fantastic Five. The next of the Fantastic Five, which we will cover, is Blue Ocean. Blue Ocean kind of started back in the early 2000s or so, written by Shan Kim and Renee Malberg. They recognize that a lot of people make that mistake, that they will compete head on. And in general, when you compete with others, you know, like the creative destruction kind of version of entrepreneurship, if you compete head on, you end up with nothing but a bloody ocean. So red ocean is very similar to this particular fishbowl. You're competing with each other for the same or similar kind of marketplace. In general, it can be a bad thing. It becomes a bloody red ocean. So in general, if possible, you want to be this fish here. You want to jump away from the red ocean where there are too many competitors and so on. And you want to jump into this blue ocean. where there are no competitors at all. You're not competing with others. It's not about creative destruction anymore. It's about creativity. Create something brand new in such a way that you're not competing or you're not in this bloody red ocean of rivals. So hence, success increasingly become or come from creating this so-called blue ocean as well. So it's not all about creative destruction. Sometimes it's entrepreneurship can be about a creative part, not necessarily the destructive part of destroying your competitors anymore. And that's what blue ocean strategy is all about. Creating a blue ocean strategy of untapped new market space ripe for growth. So how do you go about doing this blue ocean? Best way to learn is always look at example on how others implement blue ocean. So let's look at a real world example of blue ocean. A very good example of blue ocean strategy is the game console. In terms of game console, here we look at the Nintendo Wii game console, the Xbox One, and smartphones games. Yeah, so you can download these games on smartphones as well, but it competes with other game consoles such as the Xbox or the Nintendo or even the Sony PlayStation. But every business strategy, including game console, you can always decompose the business down into various different dimensions where you are competing with others. So here you're competing with availability of games, how you purchase the game. Yeah, if you purchase for smartphones and so on, you're going to purchase the game through Android Play Store or Apple App Store. In general, they are very, very easy to download. So hence the score for smartphones kind of games are very high because it's highly available. Whereas Xbox games, you buy these CD or DVD from high street stores and so on. Whereas Nintendo Wii, you have to buy these so-called cartridges and so on. So Nintendo pretty much less so in terms of availability. Similarly, you can always subdivide and look at other dimensions such as game quality, voice control, motion controls, and other applications, and price of the console itself, and the price of the game. So you see here with smartphone games, availability is very high, quality is going to be very low. You can download almost any pretty bad games as well off Play Store as well as App Store. There's virtually no voice control at all, and there's no motion control when it comes to smartphone games. But in terms of applications and other uses of smartphones, there are many. So smartphones tend to score very high. And the price of smartphones are relatively quite cheap compared to the Xbox and the Nintendo Wii, for example. And the price of games is going to be very, very cheap. Whereas Xbox, availability is going to be less so compared to smartphones. Game quality is going to be a lot higher because Microsoft will only give licenses to good developers, whereas mobile phones or smartphones, any developers can launch games. Voice control, the Xbox do have voice control as well as motion control. They are quite good as well. Other applications, they have less so choices compared to smartphones. Price is going to be very bad because it's going to be very expensive compared to smartphones. And the price of the game is going to be a lot more expensive compared to smartphones. So Nintendo is the company which tried to use or utilize this blue ocean strategy. You want to move away from the red ocean, such as the smartphone games, as well as the Xbox. So Nintendo chose to compete in area where the smartphones and the Xbox are weak at. So you see here, the Nintendo try to be in between Xbox and smartphones. They recognize certain gaps, which is missing in the marketplace. So hence, they can create a product that isn't competing with the Xbox, but also it is not competing with the smartphone games as well. Yeah, it's somewhere in the middle. So it's away from the Xbox or the red ocean of the Xbox and away from the red ocean of smartphones. It's in its own area itself. It's in its own blue ocean. It is differentiate itself away from these two red ocean, which is the expensive, high value, high cost Xbox, and away from the low value, low cost smartphones games. So it's somewhere in the middle. And it created its own space, its own marketplace, where it's not directly competing with smartphone games, and it's not directly competing with the Xbox games or the Sony PlayStation games. It creates its own kind of marketplace, its own blue ocean. Once Nintendo understands where it is, it can choose to compete with these red ocean on its own terms, on its own playing field, for example. So you see here, Nintendo has made a market of its own, but now because they recognize they have strength in certain areas, hence they can compete with the Xbox or the smartphones in certain areas of their own choosing as well. So it gives you that extra advantage in the sense that you're in your own blue ocean, but you can compete with the red ocean on your strength as well. And hence that's what Nintendo did. It can compete on game quality with the Xbox, and it can compete on the motion control, and it has better motion control compared to the Xbox. So hence it can choose which area or which dimension it can compete with the Xbox. So it chose to compete on the game quality as well as motion control. So not only is in its own blue ocean, it can choose to compete with the red ocean on its strength, where it is most strongest. So hence it's kind of a Boolean kind of tactics as well. Where it's strong, it will go head to head with the Xbox. Where it is weak, it will choose a blue ocean rather than compete directly with the Xbox red ocean. And don't forget, the Xbox will be competing with the PlayStation, Sony PlayStation, and maybe other companies as well. Where smartphones are going to be Android games and iOS games and so on. Whereas Nintendo Wii going to be in its own blue ocean, a totally different kind of sector in its own right as well. It's not competing with anyone. It only competes in where it chooses to compete, where it knows it is strong at. In addition, it can create other marketplace where only the Nintendo Wii has access to. So things like virtual realities and so on, the Nintendo Wii creates its own marketplace. So Blue Ocean is about not only creating or moving away from the red ocean, but not only that, create other dimension which the other red ocean do not have access to, but it allows you to compete with the red ocean where you want to choose or where you are strong at as well. So by decomposing your marketplace down into these various different dimensions, you can strategize yourself to be able to operate in a blue ocean, but not only that, if you want to compete with the red ocean, choose where you want to compete with the red ocean as well. So for blue ocean, it's quite a good strategy because most businesses tend to operate in red ocean. So like Chinese products, where low value, low cost, or European products, or American products, where you operate like Apple and so on, where you operate in a high value, high cost kind of environment. And both of these are red ocean. Everyone will always try to be either low value, low cost, or high value, high cost. In general, less so competitors and so on, or basically the blue ocean, where you are producing something which is somewhere in the middle, right amount of value for a right amount of cost. So a good example of products and so on which operates in the blue ocean, Nintendo is a good example, but also Korean cosmetics as well. Korean cosmetics is not expensive like Chinese, European kind of products, high value, high cost, but it's not low value, low cost like Chinese products as well. It operates in its own so-called niche market. Niche market are like these blue ocean. There are no competitors in this so-called niche ocean. Whereas if you compete with the Chinese products, you're going to be competing on values, low values, low cost, or on European or American products, it's going to be high value, high cost itself. So in general, in blue ocean, you are creating a competition-free market space for your own products and services. Whereas in red ocean, you are competing, or competition occur in the existing market space, like the low value, low cost, or high value, high cost. In blue ocean, competition becomes irrelevant to you. It's a niche market. There's no other player other than you. Your product is unique in this particular market itself. Whereas in red ocean, you have to beat the competitors. It's the so-called creative destruction kind of thing happening. In blue ocean, there is no substitution between value and cost, whereas in red ocean, you need to attend to existing demands. Low value, low cost, high value, high cost. In blue ocean, you create and capture new demand and sources and so on. It's in this so-called new niche area itself. Whereas in red ocean, it's all about the value and the cost trade-off. Low value, low cost trade-off, or high value, high quality, high cost product. In blue ocean, companies' activities are aligned, choosing both differentiation as well as low cost strategy. So kind of a high quality, low cost. So it's moving away from the Chinese kind of low value, low quality, low cost, or the high quality but also high cost of Apple products and so on. Red oceans, pretty much companies' activities are about aligning and choosing differentiation or low cost strategy itself. It's red ocean are high value, high cost, and low value, low cost. There's not that many companies or country which operates in between. Okay, let's check the time. Okay, so blue ocean is second of the Fantastic Five. Let's move on. The next of the Fantastic Five, is disruptive innovation. Disruptive innovation is different from the lean startups, which more focusing on putting failure within your business plan as well, or with Blue Ocean is about creating a business area where you're not competing with any competitors. With disruptive innovation, a slightly different mechanism is in play. The problem with disruptive innovation is a lot of very successful companies, such as the IBM or the HP or the Dell computers or the BlackBerry or Nokia, they were very, very successful in their own time. They're good at what they do. They're good innovators, they're good managers. These are very well managed companies. Yeah, so loss of market shares of very well respected companies. But why does it happen? IBM wasn't a bad company. HP wasn't a bad company. Dell wasn't bad companies. Nokia and BlackBerry weren't bad companies either. But why did they fail? Why did they lose market share? They were good at what they do. They were good technology companies. Yeah, so lots of market shares, very well respected and managed companies such as these here happen throughout history. It did not just happen once; it happens on a regular basis. We kind of see this throughout history, whether it's technology companies or internet companies or mobile phone companies and so on. Companies become very, very successful, and then it loses market shares. But the issue here is that good managers face this so-called dilemma because of doing what they're good at doing. So by doing what the very thing which they need to succeed, they run this risk of ignoring their rivals, the so-called disruptive innovation. They're good managers, they're good at what they do, but sometimes they overdo it. The things with the marketplace is that people need some innovation. They don't need too much innovation, and they don't need too little innovation. Too much innovation can be bad. Too little innovation can be bad as well. So we look at this graph. This is the x-axis is time. The amount of innovation is in the z-axis. So up and down, high innovation, low innovation, time period, past, today, future. The thing with the marketplace or customers in general will accept certain amount of innovation. So you have this normal curve, the Gaussian distribution or normal curve, where majority of customers will want to have some innovation. So you see innovation is increasing with time. Down here, where there are less demanding customers in terms of innovation, and up here, where there are more demanding customers when it comes to innovation. And in the middle, where majority of the marketplace or majority of the customers is going to be. So these are the early adopters of new technology up here. And these are the adopters of very old technology down here. So the majority of the market will accept some innovation, but not too much innovation. There's very few customers where there are too much innovation. And not only that, there are very few customers where there are too little amount of innovation happening as well. But the problem with technology companies like the IBMs and the Dell and the BlackBerry and the Nokia, sometimes they overdo it. They will produce too much innovation for what the market demands. You want to be able to, in sense that to be a sustained innovation, you want to produce some innovation, but you want it to aim at an area where there are players, where there are customers. Yeah, so sustainable innovation, you want to do some innovation and you want to be able to keep close to the peak where there are majority of the customers involved. The problem with a lot of these technology companies, they will over produce or over innovate. So it'd be a straight line up to here. So, there's no line here, but a lot of these technology companies will over innovate and will do something up here, yeah, instead of something down here where it needs to fit the marketplace itself. A good example would be Google Glass. I don't know whether many of you remember Google Glass. Let's have a look for Google Glass. Google Glass is a wearable. It's wearing like a big computer monitor on your face. This here projects a big computer screen onto your eye. So you wear it like a glass, but it's like having a computer monitor, an invisible computer monitor projected onto your retina itself. And you can control the monitor through these buttons by touching your ear through these buttons, and maybe even these joystick at the back of your where your ear is. So you can control the monitors like your mouse using your fingers and the back of the glass itself. So it's like having a computer. So it's better than a laptop in the sense that, or even better than mobile phones, is that you wear it and it projects the mobile phones or even the computer onto your eye itself. So you can see through it. But not only that, you can see a computer monitors consistently. And then it also has a camera here as well. So most of you probably thought that this is a good idea, but it wasn't successful at all. Why wasn't it successful? It was before its time. It was too much innovation for the marketplace itself. But Google invested billions of dollars in terms of developing this Google Glass itself. But that's where the advantage lies. Yeah, the so-called disruptive innovators, or the disruptive innovation, or the so-called startup which implement this disruptive innovation, is about timing. Yeah, typically, Google will be a straight line. Let me see if I can draw on here. Maybe I can do here. So Google probably would do something similar to this. Over innovate. Yeah. There's no marketplace up here. It's just the wrong timing. It delivers something before its time. And it's probably cost Google billions of US dollars to research onto Google Glass and so on. And not only that, try to launch it into the marketplace before they shut it down. Startups like yourself, the so-called disruptive innovators, by timing it correctly. You know, Google already spent billions of US dollars. The technology is already out there. There's nothing else you need to invest to do more in terms of research and development. By taking that technology, Google Glass, and launching it in the right time, when they're ever demand. Don't forget that eventually customers, eventually innovation, what customers demand will slowly catch up with Google or Google Glass. It's just that Google was too early in the marketplace for what the market's willing to accept. But the market will eventually demand in terms of innovation will eventually catch up. There is a rising trend. At some point in the future, that rising trend will cross over where the Google Glass is going to be. And that's hence like yourself, startups like yourself, can take that opportunity. Yeah, Google already did most of the work for you. All you have to do is just take the technology which Google has invested billions of dollars in and launch into the marketplace at the right time. It's the same for all these other technology companies, from the IBMs and the HPs and the BlackBerry and the Nokia. And they invested a lot of money in a lot of these research and a lot of time. It's before their time. Yeah, a lot of these technology, a lot of these innovations for their time. And hence it opens up a lot of opportunity for these so-called disruptive innovators, startups like yourself. by taking these technology, which people already spend billions of dollars on already, and getting the right timing, figure out where the marketplace is, and launch it at the right time. So for Google Class, maybe it's not today. That is a good thing. Maybe it's not next year, but maybe in 5 years' time, the marketplace will catch up and they will accept a wearable such as Google Glass. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that many of you will want a wearable like a glass, which acts like a computer screen or mobile phones, or even if you have earphones here as well, it's like a smartphones, but pretty much on your eye, with a big screen on your eye as well, where you can take photos and so on as well. But maybe not today, maybe not next year, maybe in 5 years' time, maybe in 10 years' time. You never know. But that's the point of disruptive innovation. It costs startups a lot less because most of the work is done by these technology giants, which invest billions of dollars in terms of R&D, research and development, and did most of the work for you already. Yeah? So all you need to do is just use it and basically choose the right timing for these technology which are over innovative. Let's check the time. So the time is 11:40. We'll take a 15 minutes break and then we'll carry on with the rest of the Fantastic Five after the break. Okay, so we'll restart at 11:55. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, good, good. Let's continue from where we left. So before the break, we covered quite a few, the first three of the Fantastic Five. We covered lean startup. Yeah, main point of lean startup is you know you're going to fail, so plan failure within your business plan. Try to fail quickly and cheaply so that you can improve on the next version. Once you reach version 10 or maybe even version 20, it will get closer to perfection. Your product or your service will be ideal for your customers or for your market. With Blue Ocean, a slightly different strategy here is that instead of competing directly with competitors, you want to strategize yourself away from other competitors and create your own niche or your own blue ocean where you can operate in and you're not directly competing with anyone else. But it gives you also the advantage that wherever you are strong, you can choose those kind of dimensions to compete with players within the red ocean. So you choose where you want to do your competition with as well. So where you're strongest, you can compete. But when you are weak, you can choose those kind of area to be in blue ocean. Yeah, so it gives you that advantage that you can directly compete with the red ocean on where you are strongest. The third of the Fantastic Five is disruptive innovation. With disruptive innovation, there are plenty of opportunity out there. Yeah, there has been very, very successful companies such as IBM, HP, BlackBerry, Dell, Nokia, and so on, who over-innovated, who released products which are before their time. So it gives a lot of opportunity for startups like yourself, given the right timing. You can take these technology which these technology companies has invested in, and by choosing the right timing, you can do things at much cheaper rates and so on, and launch it at the right time. You can create a lot of success and a lot of opportunity for yourself, for example. So with disruptive innovation, rather than invest in your own R&D, you can take the R&D from these very successful companies, $1 billion has invested in these things, and you can run with it yourself. We kind of seen that back in the 1980s with IBM. IBM kind of invented the personal computer. Yeah, so IBM were famous back in their times in the 1970s and the early 1980s. But then it allows the so-called IBM compatible PCs. And Microsoft and pretty much the other computer companies took kind of the research from IBM, the personal computer, and come up with the IBM compatible. And nowadays, all your computers which you use from your laptop and so on are all IBM compatible for a reason. Yeah, IBM invested a huge amount of R&D into their products, their personal computers, and then you have these startups like Dell and HP and so on, took the IBM compatible and pretty much run with it. We kind of seen other kind of technologies such as Nokia with the mobile phones and so on, and Apple kind of took the mantle of the smartphones and ran with that as well. But majority of the technology, pretty much Nokia kind of innovated but then they innovate in the wrong direction. They over-innovate in other direction when they should be focusing on kind of smartphones, even though a lot of the technology within the smartphones itself, Nokia are very strong at. Okay, so that's disruptive innovation. Next of the Fantastic Four, the fourth of the Fantastic Four is business model canvas. We'll go into details of business model canvas later on. So we'll gloss over business model canvas. Business model canvas, or sometimes known as business model generation, emphasize the idea that once a model for a business goal becomes apparent, the new business is ready to launch. The centerpiece, it allows you, it helps decompose a very complicated business. I mean, here we look at an example. Let's just zoom in. Example of Skype. You can decompose something complicated down to something much easier to understand. Skype is a big company. It's a very complicated company, but it can be simplified or decomposed down to 9 boxes. You have one box here, which is client segment, customer relationship, sales channel, value proposition, key activities, key resources, key partners, cost structure, and revenue stream. You can decompose any businesses down to these 9 different area where you can use to strategize. But the issue with business model canvas is that it's useful once you know what the company products or service is going to be. Yeah, so Skype is very well known what kind of service it offers. So hence, the business model canvas become useful. But if you don't know what product it is or what kind of service you're going to offer in your startup, then business model canvas is not as useful as such. Yeah, so business model canvas is good for later stage startup, more mature startups. Not that useful for beginners or startups which are still at its product or service development stage itself. We'll go into details how to use business model canvas, as well as where it is strong at in a moment. So let's skip over business model canvas. We'll come back to it in a moment and jump to the 5th of the Fantastic 5, which is design thinking. So design thinking is the highest trending of the Fantastic 5. Yeah. Very popular recently, also very popular in the past as well. Design thinking has very good points as well. I mean, they have big advantages in certain areas. The thing is that majority of people like yourself, once you are forced to do eBiz Hub, typically you will make the usual mistakes as such. Yeah. So it's the classical mistakes what you're going to be making, and the same mistakes as the 20th century tech startup, you know, like the Microsoft or the Facebook or the Amazon and so on. So typically, old-fashioned way of starting a startup, you have a group of founders, like your group, 5 members or 4 members, sorry, 3 or 4 members in your group. You have a vision for a product or a service. So founders will come up with a product or a service or vision for a product and service, and then they build the entire product. Once they have the entire product, then they will hire staff as well as launch, well, once they kind of have the business plan, they'll hire staff if they think it's interesting and so on, and produce and manufacture the products or the service, and then go out there and find customers. Yeah, chance of success are very, very low. Yeah, if you think this is the old-fashioned way of doing or starting a startup, yeah, most of you will be making these mistakes. So be careful there. Yeah, so this is not the right way. This is the old-fashioned way. Modern way of starting a business are different from this. Earlier today, we learned about lean startup. Yeah, so this is the 21st century of how to start a business. It's different from the 20th century. With the 21st century, you plan failure in place. You try to fail quickly, and you try to fail as cheaply as possible, so you can play the game more than once. So for lean startup, founders have some kind of a vision for a product or a service, or group of founders like yourself, your EB subgroup, for example. Then that founder group of 3 or 4 individuals would try to build a minimum viable product. Once you have a minimum viable product, a product which is cost you as least amount of resources as you can do, or least amount of money invested in this minimum viable product, you launch it into a marketplace to see or to get feedback from your customers. Yeah? By getting feedback from your customers, you know where the mistakes or the errors are. You will iterate and try to fix that error, and you build version 2 of the minimum viable product. And then you do the same thing again. You launch into some kind of limited marketplace so that you can collect more information. So unlike the previous method up here, you have not hired any staff. It's just the 3 or 4 of you building this minimum viable product and then iterating it into the marketplace. So hence, you're not burning away on your capital or money in terms of hire staff or launch it into some kind of marketplace. Your investment has not started yet. Yeah? I mean, here in the old-fashioned way, you build a business plan, and then after the business plan, you launch the company. Here, you have not even have a business plan yet. You have a limited business plan where you are actually only building minimum viable product and iterating and improving on the product. Once you approach perfection, then it kicks in. Then you hire sales staff, because you already been, your customers has validated your product or your service already by going through this loop a few times. You can do it a few times because these are all minimum viable product. You haven't got any staff to burn your capital and things like that. And then not only that, your customer is telling you this is a perfect product or perfect service. Yeah, so once your customers validate that they're willing to buy and so on, and the marketplace are telling you this is a good product, this is close to what we want or close to perfection, then you launch your company. You hire the staff to produce the product or the service, or to buy the service. You have good enough data, given this 10 iteration of this minimum viable product and the launch into the marketplace, and not only that, collecting the data, and then you hire staff to implement your business. So you see here, this is a way, way better method compared to up here. Chance of failure for this method Number one, it's going to be expensive. Number two, chance of failure is going to be a lot higher. Here, at least you've gone through a few iterations and customers are telling you that they will buy the product. You have customer validation. And before that, even, you're not wasting your money with big staff or big facilities and things like that. It only happens once the customers has been validated. And then you hire staff. Then you increase production. Then you increase the amount of service which you provide into the marketplace. So the risk in terms of the lean startup is much, much lower. Your chance of success is going to be a lot higher because customers has validated your product or your service. So that is the lean startup kind of method. Yeah? With design thinking, it takes it one step further. It improves it even better. If you think this is a good method already, design thinking is going to be a better method. With design thinking, it removes the founder out of the equation. In your eBiz Hub group of 3 to 4 founders, you are not involved in the product itself. It's not your vision, it's not your product. If the founder were included in this so-called product vision itself, chances are that the first version is going to be different to what the customer wants. Yeah, you're designing a product for the founder, yeah, because it's the founder's vision. With design thinking, founders are removed out of the equation. You're designing something which the customers need in the first place. Yeah, founder's job is to implement this process. Yeah, founder's job is not about product development. They help with the product development, but it should be the customers who tell the founders what they want, and the founders will help and implement what the customers need. Yeah, so with design thinking, even the first step, yeah, it does not involve founders, it includes the customers. You get information from the customers already validated a small component of the product already. And then the second part is just lean startup. Yeah? So once you have an idea what the customers want, you build a minimum viable product, you send it to your customers, the customers will ask you to improve it somehow, so you iterate this a few times. If anything, you're going to be iterating less so, yeah, because you start off with the customer's needs already. So you maybe, if lean startup will take you 10 iterations to get to perfection, with design thinking, maybe you only need 5 iterations, because the first iteration, you're already ahead of lean startup already. The customers already tell you what they want in the first place. Before you even build the minimum viable product, customers already give you some feedback already. The same as lean startup, once you iterate, once you reach perfection, maybe it will take less resources, less steps to get there. Instead of 10 iterations up here, maybe 5 iterations down here. Then you have, by the time you reach perfection, you have good enough data or even better data, such as extensive amount of data. And that you are ready to launch the product. Not only the customers has validated your product or your service, they were involved within the whole process. Customers were involved in almost every single step of the way. Unlike the lean startup, the lean startup customers are not included in the first step. So the product is ready to launch pretty much. Then you hire staff, then you start production, mass production, then you start to offer the services and so on. So it has all the best bits and pieces from lean startup, but not only that, it saves you a lot more because you start off with the not by making the mistakes, the initial mistakes in the first place, typical of most founders. And hence, less iteration, less cost, less risk overall. So design thinking include the customers right from the onset. So design thinking are very similar to lean startup as well as blue ocean strategy. It maintains strong focus on the designs and the innovation and the cost savings and the competitions and so on. It constantly improving on the product through these iterations, similar to lean startup. However, rather than improving on the product by taking problems and working towards the solution, it focused more on building a product through ideas as well as possible enhancement, even right at the onset, and working with the customers and so on. It involves more with the customers. So hence, the process in terms of design thinking, you need to be able to emphasize with the customers. You know, it's not the idea of the founder group. It's about working towards a solution for the customers itself. Yeah? It should not involve some kind of vision from the founder. Yeah? Everything needs to be focused more on the customers itself. At the end of the day, you are designing a product or service for the customer, not for the founder. So emphasizing the customers are very, very important, and developing a deep understanding of the customer's problem or their challenge. Don't forget, it's the end of the day customers which will pay you to solve their problem, not you try to solve your own problem. Okay, so it should not be the founder's vision. You know, it should be understanding or emphasizing the customer's problem. Once you understand the customer's problem, once you have emphasis or emphasizing the customers, then you can define in much more clearly or articulate the problem itself. Once you understand what the customer's needs, then you can define the problems you want to solve. Then you brainstorm, you ideate, you brainstorm for potential solution. Select and develop a solution for the customers. Yeah, it's not about you, it's not about the founder. It's all to do with the customer. Then you build your minimum viable product, your prototype, design prototype, or series of prototype. It's going to take a few iterations. The first iteration is not going to be perfect. It's like everything else in the real world, like clean tech. First few attempts, it's okay to fail. It's okay to build a bad prototype. It's your first attempt, but you learn from your mistake. Hence, you build version 2, version 3, version 4. It would be a series of prototype or series of minimum viable product. Once you have a minimum viable product, you can send it to customers to test all or part of your solution, whether it best fit the customers, and using the data you collect and the feedback from the customers itself through these engage in continuous short cycle innovation process with the customers itself, continually improving your design and so on, and then pretty much iterate. Yeah? So iterate relentlessly until you reach maybe version 2, version 3, version 4. Maybe even reaching version 5 and so on, you will reach a product which is closer to perfection. It's going to be much faster than compared to lean startup, where you start off with the founder's vision rather than the customer's vision. Okay, so that is design thinking. It takes it a little bit step further. It's slightly more advanced, slightly more work compared to lean startup. But in general, each one of these Fantastic Five has their own strength and weaknesses as well. So don't think that just because design thinking trending high and so on, and it covers quite a lot, does not mean that it is the right business model for your business itself. Yeah? Different business models are strong for different reasons or even different areas. Things like blue ocean, design thinking, creativity and ideation and innovation and so on are very good at the early stage. So this is the timeline typical of a startup. Yeah, so towards the early stage of a startup, mid stage of a startup, once you are dealing with problems and solutions and so on, and then later stage when you are in the expansion zone, where you have business model and then you scale it up and expand it into the marketplace. So the Fantastic Five, they are strong at different areas. So the early stage of startups, things like blue ocean, design thinking, creativity and ideation, and brainstorming, those are very strong among these business models. Blue ocean and design thinking also strong at the mid stage as well, where you are solving problems and coming up with solutions. But mid stage, that's where lean startup and agile software development methods and so on become strong at. These methods, the lean startups, are not that good towards the beginning, but it's good towards the middle and the later stage. Even if in the late stage, it's going to be slightly better compared to design thinking, for example. And then towards the end or the late stage businesses, when you're actually scaling up and so on and improving and making lots and lots of money, that's when business model canvas starts to kick in. Business model canvas are a lot more powerful than design thinking and blue ocean. But at the late stage, it's very bad towards the early stage of startup or even the mid stage of startup. Business model canvas are not does not help you during the insight of the problem or the solution, or even the business model. It's not that good. Business model canvas become powerful at the scale up stage, where you actually expanding the business itself. It becomes very, very powerful. So be careful there. I mean, not all the Fantastic Five will fit what you need. Most of you are going to be needing around here, early stages. For those who have fairly good idea on what their business is all about, then maybe a business model canvas can help you in the later stage, once you understand what your business is all about. Lean startups are helpful towards the mid stage, helping with solutions and maybe to a certain extent helping in terms of scaling up as well. So be careful, not all business plan or all of the Fantastic Five will be useful for you. They will be useful at different stage. So maybe start off with blue ocean or design thinking, and then kind of switch over to lean startup and business model canvas at the later stage. Design thinking kind of have that built in anyhow. Design thinking has that early stage, but also the lean startup is built into its later stage as well. So it's kind of expanding by taking the good things or the best of what lean startup it is, and then plug it into the later stage when it comes to design thinking. But separate to that, business model canvas are very useful when it's come to scaling up, which we will cover now. Let's check the time. It's 12:24. We'll try to cover business model canvas in half an hour, so should be okay. So what is business model canvas? Sometimes also known as Austin-Well business model canvas. I see at the International University, they use it quite often. So be careful that, like I said, it's useful only for later stage when you understand what your business is all about. It's pointless to use business model canvas at the very early stage when you don't know what product you're going to offer, or when you don't know what kind of service you're going to offer. Business model canvas is not that useful at all. So in this part of the lecture, we'll cover examples, and then there's an exercise towards the end where you can write your own business model canvas or create your own business model canvas by following through a number of different exercises. But in general, most of you probably at the early stage around here, not at the later stage. So maybe business model canvas are not relevant to what you are currently doing. Some of you might be focused more on this area, early stage or mid stage even, when it comes to lead startup. And business model canvas might not be necessary for your eBiz Hub at all, because that's more the later stage itself. Okay, let's go through Austin Well business model canvas. Yeah, business model canvas simplify complicated businesses or startups by decomposing it down into 9 different sections. You have 9 sections here. There's 1 here, 2 here. That's 3, 4 here, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You should be able to see this shadow boxes down here. The first of these 9 sections, every company will have, every startups and so on, they will have some kind of customer segment. Customer segment can be one kind of customer, or can be several kind of customer segments. So all startups, all organizations will serve at least one, or it can serve several customers segment. Separate to customer segment, you need to be able to have a solution for your customers, or a value proposition for the customers. So it seeks, value proposition seeks to solve the customer's problem. Wherever you solve customer's problem, customers will pay you to solve their problem for them. And hopefully they will be satisfied in the process. So satisfy customers' needs with some kind of value proposition or some kind of solution for them. But you need to be able to communicate with the customers. You need to be able to send the solution to your customers. So you need some kind of sale or distribution channel. Could be through high street stores, could be the internet, could be mobile, could be Facebook, could be Instagram. It could be various different channels. The channel can be many. Value proposition are delivered to the customers through one of these communication or distribution or sales channel, whether it's mobile or Facebook or high street or one of these various different channels which you interact with your customers. Separate to the channel, you need to have some kind of relationship with your customers, to continually communicate with your customers, whether it's through email, face-to-face contact, when your customers come to your store and so on, or through social networking such as Facebook or Instagram and so on. So customers need to be able to communicate with you through some kind of relationship which are established and maintained with the customers or the various different segments. There could be multiple segments of customers involved. Separate to that, the customers need to be able to pay you somehow. You're offering a service and a product. At the end of the day, you're solving your customers' problem. They need to pay you for solving their problem for that. So there needs to be some kind of revenue stream. So revenue streams results from offering the customers a value proposition and successfully deliver the value proposition to your customer. But to be able to have a value proposition or a solution, you need to have resources. You need to be able to have raw material to produce the product or the services or the solution for your customers. So you need key resources, raw material or other form of resources to offer or to create your value proposition. So key resources are assets required to offer and deliver the value proposition to the customer segment or segments. Separate to key resources, you need to have employees to manufacture or to put the raw material together to form the value propositions and so on. So you need to have certain key activities, whether you are a manufacturer or offering a service. You need to have staff to be able to offer these value proposition to your customers. So key activities are the main services or the main manufacturing required to offer as well as deliver the value proposition to the different customer segments which you have. Separate to that, you need to have key partners as well. So not everything can be done in-house by your company. Sometimes you need to outsource your production or your other kind of services to other companies as well, external companies. And these are your key partners. So some activities needs to be outsourced, and some resources are also external resources are also required to reduce your value proposition. We'll go through example each one of these later on. But definitely, not everything can be done in-house. Whatever cannot be done in-house, it can be done through outsource to your key partners. And lastly, you need to have some kind of cost structure as well, because offering these services, value propositions, and so on, all these will cost money. You need to pay your outsourcers, you need to pay your staff, as well as acquire your assets or your raw material, as well as pay for the transport and the relationship when it comes to sales and marketing. To offer all this to your customers, it will cost you some kind of amount of money. But as long as the revenue, which is in this particular box here, is greater than the cost structure, then you will be making a profit. If your revenue is lower than your cost structure to offer all this, quite substantial amount of things you offer it, and then each one of these things will cost money to you. If your revenue is below your cost structure, then you are loss-making. So hence, every single business or every business model elements results in some kind of cost, and it is summarized in this cost structure itself. So these diagrams can be drawn into box form. And you have 9 boxes: customer segment, distribution channel, value proposition, customer relationship, revenue streams, key resources, key activities, key partners, and cost structure. So every single business can be easily simplified down into these 9 boxes. And that's the power of what business model canvas is all about. You can simplify something complicated, such as a business, into something which is a lot easier to look at. Even look at everything all on one A4, as what you kind of seen here. But the other things that a lot of people make this mistake, so it needs to be on removable media, like sticky notes or whiteboard and rubbable ink, or pencil and paper, that kind of thing. It should not be done, business model canvas, it should not be done on permanent media, such as ink or even printouts and things like that. The power of the Austin Wells business model canvas is the adaptability, allow you to change strategy, to add more customer segment, to add more revenues and so on. So hence, you need to use a removable media. You use different color to represent different revenue streams or different customer segments and so on, to make things a lot more clearer and so on. We'll go through a few examples which does that in a moment. But business model canvas is very important that it needs to be on removable media or erasable media, such as whiteboard and rubbable ink, or pencils and paper, or sticky notes, different color sticky notes, or different color pens and so on, or pencils that can be changed with time. But you need to have it to be adaptive. So let's look at various different examples of how we use Austin Wells business model canvas. So let's look at this business, Kiva, which is a microfinance business. Same thing here, 9 different segments. You have customer segment, you have distribution channel, customer relationship, value or offering, value service, key resource, key activities, key partners, and cost structure. So this business, Kiva business model, one of our customer segment is wealthy Westerners, offering to lend. So for example, consider kiva.org, which is a web page, similar to eBizHub to a certain extent. In eBizHub, you hand in your business plan. Yeah, the business plan can be offered to or can be posted onto a web page such as kiva.org, so that wealthy Westerners can view your business plan. If they like your business plan, they can lend money for you to implement your business plan. So and that's what microfinance is all about. So loans can be provided to your eBizHub business plan. And this can be all listed, and wealthy Westerners can have access to all your business plan. And if they like your business plan, they can offer loans to your business plan. So poor entrepreneur like yourself might require capital to implement your business plan. By posting these business plan onto websites and so on, you can access loans, and Kiva can maybe talk to microfinance institutions such as banks and so on to be able to communicate with entrepreneur, or even with the International University, for example, to offer these loans to these entrepreneurs. And the IU, International University, will help post your business plan for wealthy Westerners to be able to view. So you see the power here. Once you understand, once you know what your business plan is all about, the Austin business model canvas becomes a lot more powerful for you to strategize. But you need to use these removable media, such as sticky notes, and you can use different color pens to plot out various different graphs and so on as well, to make things a lot more clearer. So at the end of the day, you need to be paid to do, or Kiva needs to be paid somehow. Yeah? And one way which you can be paid is through these optional donation from wealthy Westerners lending money to you guys, eBizHub, or poor entrepreneurs here in Vietnam, for example. Or it could be also another revenue stream, could be through interest from these loans which are lent to entrepreneurs. So maybe these microfinance institutions will pass some of these interest over to you as well to provide this particular service. So potentially, I can stick on another sticky notes, writing in interest shared or share interest with microfinance institution, for example, as another revenue stream. But in addition, to provide all these services and so on, and value proposition to these two customer segments, you need some kind of resources or raw material, which is the website. You need some kind of hosting, cloud servers to not only that, but also web developers to help you post all these business plans onto the website. But in addition, you need to have all the staff to not only screen the business plan which goes onto the websites, but also the microfinance institution, the MF, to provide these loan services to the entrepreneurs themselves. In addition, you need some kind of payment services or risk management service to be able to get the repayment of these loans back to the lender or the investor, as well as if any interest payment needs to be paid back to the investors as well. And that's what the risk management, you need to have staff to be able to do that as well. And that is your key activities. But in addition, you need key partners as well. In this case, you need payment partners, banks or PayPal, to be able to allow wealthy Westerners to transfer money to the local microfinancial institution to be able to pass on to a poor entrepreneur. As well as other key partners, which also include the microfinance institution as well. But you can see here, I'm using different color sticky notepads to represent different customer segments. So all the yellow represents the customer segment of the Westerners, including this revenue stream here. But if I have interest payment as well, then I will use a blue sticky note to represent the customer segment of, don't forget that poor entrepreneurs is also a customer segment of Kiva.org as well. And hence I would use a blue sticky note for poor entrepreneur as a customer segment. And maybe here a blue sticky note for interest payment as well. So separate, to provide all these services, separate to that, I need to have some kind of cost structure as well. So hence I need to pay for the website platform as well as web developers. I need to be able to pay for all the staff, which will do the streaming of business plan, as well as microfinance institution, as well as the staff which implement the risk management, as well as some of the commission for PayPals and local financial institution as well. So there might be small amount from there as well. So hence you can see here something as complicated as a microfinance institution, which is similar to a bank, can be all viewed and strategized on one A4. Yeah, so I can shift things around. I use different color. So you can see the power of Austinwell business model. You can view something very, very complicated, very complex, all on one page. But not only that, you can add other customer segment readily by writing on sticky notes, or even remove certain sticky notes. And not only that, using different color, so you see different streams of customer segments as well as revenue streams and different area. By using different color, things can be visualized very quickly. Let's look at another example. In this example is Grameen banking for the poor. So very similar to microfinance institution. This is more like a banking business plan. Similarly, I will have to use remove media in this sense. In this case, it's a pencil. Customer segment is poor entrepreneur. Value proposition are microloans. Microloans are done through sales channels such as high street branches. So entrepreneur comes and meet officers at the branches and discuss their business plan as well as their loan requirement. There will be face-to-face relationship. So these are loan officers meeting the entrepreneur. So the relationship are done through face-to-face relationship. And the distribution channel is going to be done through branches. The value proposition are just loans, and revenue stream is going to be interest rate payments. Yeah? So entrepreneurs will repay the loans as well as interest rate for the loans itself. Separate to the loans, you need to have key resources and key activities. The key resources are capital, as well as your branches and your brand and your trust. And the main activities of your staff is going to be lending and collecting payments, such as loan repayment or interest repayment, as well as risk managing to make sure all these microloans are repaid. Separate to that, typical of most micro loans, is government will be involved. Government wants to subsidize a lot of these loans because creating startups and so on are good for society. It creates jobs, employment, it creates innovation and so on. So that's why Vietnam has the startup nation policies and so on. They want to be involved because helping out entrepreneurs and startups and so on, it will help create more jobs and more economy. So our partners could be governments. Maybe they will help and subsidize some of these microloans to create more startups, hence create more jobs, and not only that, to create more economy for for Vietnam, for example. But it will cost. There will be some kind of cost structure. Maybe governments will help with subsidizing some of these costs, but you need to be able to pay your staff to provide these key activities. These are like your risk managers and your lending officers to be able to make sure all the payments are paid back in time as well. But in addition, your raw materials or your capital and so on will cost you money as well. So you need to be able to pay your investors the capital costs as well. So as long as your revenue, which are these interest payments, are higher than your capital costs from your investors, as well as the cost of your staff, salaries which you're paying to your staff, then you are making a profit. It'd be a profit-making company. But if your interest payment or repayments going to be lower than your cost structure, then you are loss-making. So there's no point making businesses and so on. But the power of Austin Well business model, here you can strategize. If your revenue stream is lower than your cost structure, it doesn't mean that the business is not worth it or not. You can always add more customer segments. So I can draw down typical banks. You can sell insurance products as well, or other financial products. So that's another customer segment, because I already have branches anyhow. So I can sell other financial products with it. It will add to my revenue stream. So not only interest payment, but other commission from other financial products, such as insurance or other kind of financial services. I already have the personnel, face-to-face and so on, in general, I can add extra segments and then provide and make sure that I have key resources and key activities or key partners in place. So pretty much everything can be done on a sheet of A4. Maybe even that, maybe not enough. Maybe I need to add other customer segments. So typical banks don't just offer loans or financial services to other to customers, but they can offer other services as well, such as payment transfer, things like Zalo Pay and you know, the mobile payments and so on as well. So maybe I can add on an extra customer segment because I already have branches and personnel and so on. So maybe payments and so on can be an extra service, or even ATM services, cash machines and so on as well as a separate customer segment with a separate revenue streams and so on. It can all add up, and you can add all these strategies and so on one A4, and you can view something which is as complex as a bank or on one A4, and not only that, you can strategize as well. Yeah, so you see the power of what a business model canvas is all about. But it's only useful once you have an idea what your business is all about. If you don't have a service or a product ready, then a Austin Well business model canvas is not useful at all. But once a business plan is clear, then a business model canvas becomes very, very powerful. It allows you to strategize. Yeah, I mean, you see here, green banking, you can add on extra customer segment readily, and it can flow through the graph and so on. But let's look at the complex, the more complex, such as Skype, what we kind of seen before, and how they deal with it. And you see, it can deal with something as complicated as Skype, as well as readily, and it can be all done on an A4 even. So with Skype, there are 3 different, or maybe even 4 different customer segments. You have the global internet users, you have Skype out users, you have companies users, and you have also hardware products as well. Yeah, so there are quite a few different customer segments. From there, you can get 3 different revenue streams. The Skype, selling Skype hardware, like phones and communication hardware, to use the Skype service. You also have these service as well, basic services such as Skype Out, and then you have these credit and subscription services as well, in terms of revenue stream. All your value proposition can be listed, and you can see everything all in one A4 very simplistically, and all your sales channels such as Skype.com, Skype app, Skype manager, as well as Skype hardwares. And if you have Skype do offer and sell these hardware as well. It's not just a software solution. I think you can probably see more of these types of Skype hardware in Europe. In Vietnam, we might use Skype software side of things a lot more, and we see less of the hardware itself. But in Europe, you can buy these Skype hardware as well, which is another revenue stream or even clients or customer segment. Various different relationships, such as payment through Skype credit or Skype subscriptions, or personalized self-services of Skype. You have white label kind of products and so on, as well as Skype software or downloads and so on. Various different services or value propositions, such as Skype to Skype or Skype out or Skype number, as well as Skype to go and Skype connect and video conference and so on as well. And there's quite a few different value proposition there. In terms of key resources and raw materials and so on, things like the network, the Skype brand, the software, the developers. In terms of key activities for Skype is you have software developers as well as the call centers to solve problems, complaints, and so on. In addition, you need key partners as well. Although Skype has been, Microsoft has bought Skype, now it's actually part of Microsoft. Before that, Microsoft was a key partner of Skype, until it was taken over by Microsoft as a whole as well. So you have telephone companies, your key partners, as well as hardware manufacturers, as well as payments such as PayPal and banking institutions and so on. For Skype, the key cost structures are telephone costs and partner fees and your call centers and your marketing, as well as your software development and web page development. So you see something as complex as Skype as a business itself can pretty much be summarized all on one A4 or one page. And it gives you the opportunity to strategize as well by adding extra customer segments as well as extra revenue streams, and it will flow through, and you need to adjust all the other things. So business model calculus can be very powerful once you have an existing business and so on. It allows you to strategize, add on extra customer segments or revenue streams or cost structures or extra value proposition and so on. Let's check the time. We're running out of time anyhow. So you see the power of Austin Wells Business Model Canvas. I leave it as an exercise. If you're interested, like I said, it's not every company or every startup or every e-biz hub group will need a Austin Wells Business Model Canvas, because in general, it's only useful for later stage startups. Yeah? But you're welcome to go through these activities. I'll leave it as an exercise for you. By answering these questions, you can form your own business model canvas. And not only that, you can use it to strategize and calculate your assumptions and your facts and your evidence and so on. Yeah, so I'll leave it all as an exercise. But to be able to make sure that you deliver, make sure that people deliver, you need to be able to have some kind of list of deliverable, deadline for these deliverable, and then you assign responsibility to each and every one of the co-founders. You know, so things like develop revenue forecast, the hustler needs to do that, or marketing plan and so on. The hipster needs to do that, or creating a product or a service roadmap. The hacker needs to be responsible for that. They need to be delivered, as well as a deadline for these delivery. More customers and sales and marketing and so on. So hipster is responsible for that, and plan for growth and business plan and so on. The hustler needs to do that. So you need to make people responsible, but not only that, they need to know what they need to be delivered, as well as a deadline to deliver these things on time as well. Once responsibility are assigned, then you know these things will be delivered on time, as well as people know what they are doing as well. So that's the exercise. I'll leave it to you guys to figure out yourself. So don't forget that next week will be presentation week. Of the people who were chosen by the class, these people here, yeah, or these people here, and these are the topic which will be presented next week. You guys voted for it. BitTea, Shopee, Coffee House, Highland Coffee, Nike, Footlum, True Milk, TikTok, Apple, Sephora, Flow, which you guys have chosen to present and teach you. So next week, these people will help me educate the rest of the class on these technology or businesses and so on. It will be done in this order. The highest voted will go first, followed by the others. Yeah? So presentation, you don't need to send to me beforehand. You can bring your presentation on that day and present it to the class. Presentation and so on, deadline to hand in and so on is at the end of the semester anyhow. Yeah. So for those who present on that day, they will automatically get 5% bonus point, and the class will give you a maximum of 5% for the quality of your presentation. Bad presentation, you will not be rewarded by the class. Yeah. A good presentation with good quality and so on, the class will reward you for it. Yeah? So whatever you do, you'll be rewarded for it up to a maximum of 10%. So any question from anyone before we finish? Any question on the results of the midterms or the presentation next week? Any question on the business model? No question? Anyone? Okay, if there's no question, we will finish there. We're running out of time anyway. It is now 1 p.m. I think most of you want to rush off to your lunch if you haven't had lunch already. So we'll finish there if there's no question. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, sir.